This episode was sponsored by Property, the leading real estate agent for all real estate transactions with a comprehensive ecosystem. They combine highly trained experts with the latest technologies on an intelligent platform to provide clients, brokers, and service partners with risk-free, flexible, and simplified services. Learn more at property.com. That's property with an I.com.
We don't need oil because we already use what already exists. That's the biggest impact. Because there annually are produced roughly 400 million tons of plastic every year, and only 9% gets recycled. So we end up on 350 million tons. That's 350 billion kilograms every year. And out of that, 14 million end up in the ocean every year.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Merle.
Today I'm sitting here with Thomas, co-founder and CEO of Tide Ocean, a startup turning 100% ocean-bound plastic into safe, useful products. Thomas, thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me.
So before we dive, pun intended, right into Tide Ocean, I want to go back a little bit and understand about you, who you are, where you're coming from, and what your path has been like before you founded your own business. So maybe can you tell us more about your background, what you've done before Tide Ocean?
Yes, of course, with great pleasure. Actually, I'm a typical kid grown up in an entrepreneur family. So running a business and running a company was already part of our kitchen table discussions when I was young.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I had to do my standard scholar work. Continued as an apprenticeship in the Swiss watch industry. And then after a few years of work experience, I moved to Asia, where I was actually taking over the Asia operations of the family business located in Hong Kong and in China, where we have then expanded into further factories in Thailand and Myanmar.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got married and we were planning kids, we thought it's time to move back to Europe.
Okay. What was the family business about?
The company is called Braloba. It's a component manufacturer for watch straps and watch components in the Swiss watch industry. While my dad was already a pioneer, opening his first factory back in China back in 1983.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a long entrepreneurial experience, which I could profit from.
And when you were in Asia and you decided with your family to go back to Switzerland, at that point, were you still thinking of staying with the company, or were you already playing with the thought of doing something different?
Actually, I never had a thought of playing something different because within the family business, we're quite a high ethical positioned company, like paying the right people the right price and creating a certain impact was always a part of our mission.
Yeah.
And also out of the Braloba business, basically the Tide project actually started.
Okay.
Because we saw that a lot of waste is created in all the industries, and somehow, especially in developing countries, people were not really aware about waste management. So I quickly learned that this could be a business opportunity to give waste a value. So it started then with a project within the family business and grew out as an independent business later on. So it was like a smooth transition from a core business older than 40 years old into a new, fresh adventure.
I think that's really interesting. Can you tell us, when did you hit that point where you knew this could be its own business now? It can be transferred out of the company? Because I can imagine that a lot of people, they start their things, they start their projects, but they're never really sure when the point is right to go full in. When was it time for you? When did you feel like this is something we can do 100%?
Yeah, usually money tells. I mean, as soon as you have invested a certain amount of money, there's the question of no return, or like the question of the last chance to pull the trigger. And we then decided that there's only one way forward, because we knew that with Tide, we have a very innovative business approach, which has a huge potential, especially in the plastic market, which is a $400 billion market. We say it's definitely worth to further explore that opportunity. But having plastics, it's much more than just a watch industry. So even from the DNA of the company, it is a slight different structure. And then we said, okay, let's go into that Tide, further develop it, while still respecting, of course, the core business, which also helped to support the build-up of Tide, because this was not free. We had to invest a lot of money in the beginning to get that up and running. So and until today, Braloba is the main shareholder of Tide.
Okay.
On an operational level, it's completely independent company, independent balance sheet, and so on. So it's a typical spin-off.
You said earlier that the values and also the way of working, the way of treating the people that you work with, you already valued quite high in Braloba. What were things that you wanted to implement also at Tide, and what were things that you wanted to do differently at Tide?
What I learned is never earn money off the back of poor people. I mean, poor people doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they have potential. They have just hidden potential, but they don't have the opportunity to develop that potential. And by implementing people with the will to work and the will to grow, you can actually create a lot of things. So it's a bit different in Asia compared to Europe. In Europe, or the US, it's more or less a saturated market. So it's hard to motivate people to go that additional mile. While in developing countries, it's a huge opportunity for them to make one more step. Plus, when you look into poverty, which is created around developing countries or during the industrialization process, there's so many opportunities to actually include those people in your dreams and in your action plan. Because everyone can be a part of it. And this was also one of the key elements when we founded Tide. We said we want to build a global supply chain, but not only a supply chain, also a global value chain. That not only the big brands can profit from the fruits, that we actually share the profits throughout the whole supply chain. And this is what we have created, and which also gives us that kind of label that we are really caring for every link in that whole chain.
Yep. And I guess these were all things also that you saw while working in Asia a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you see, when you take like Bangkok or you take Hong Kong a bit less, it's quite well developed. But when you go into Myanmar, Indonesia, the Philippines, that gap is so big. You have like 5% owns 90% of the money. And all the education system is improving, so people are becoming smart. University degrees are increasing a lot. So it's a fast-growing industry, and when you have a growing industry, a growing population, you also have a lot of growing possibilities and opportunities.
And then at some point you said, I want to go back to Switzerland. We want to go back.
Yeah, and then was the question about the school system, right? Like all the parents maybe raise that question to themselves, where I'm going to raise my kids. And I did more than 10 years in Asia, and I think it was time to settle down a bit. Doesn't mean doing less, but doing maybe a bit different. Also give the opportunity to other people, which I have built up in Asia, to take over responsibility. and I'm now 44 years old. I still have like 10, 15 years to go, but when you consider a long-term path of a company, you need to make sure that you build the next generation up, and this you cannot do when you're 70. This you need to do when you have the energy and the motivation.
Did you already found Tide in Asia or once you came back here?
The project started in Asia within the innovation lab of Braloba, but if the official incorporation actually we did in Switzerland.
Yep.
And this was back in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me about the person that you founded it with. So your co-founder, Mark.
I had like the business plan ready.
Yeah.
I knew it will work. It's going to work. But especially when you're in the sustainability sector, in the green sector, you're getting criticized a lot, especially from press or any corporate analysts. They try to find a mistake.
Okay.
They try to position you kind of as a greenwasher in the beginning. They say, okay, you're telling how you save the planet. Where is the mistake? And then I quickly learned that I need to have a strong communication capabilities. Me personally, I'm not a journalist, but I need someone who knows how to communicate important messages.
Yeah.
And this is how I met Mark. Mark actually is the husband of my sister. So it's kind of an extended family table. But he was working more than 25 years as a journalist, as a quality journalist. And he actually comes from the other side of the river in terms like a business is usually a bit different. And journalism is kind of questioning the businesses or also supporting the businesses, of course. I thought it's a very nice balance to have someone really professional from the print media to support our mission. And this is how we found each other. And until today, we really get along very well with each other.
Yeah.
And he's actually responsible on the whole part of the communication of Tide, how we communicate our mission to value and mission to impact.
Tell me about that mission. What is the mission to impact?
As I mentioned earlier, we're building a value chain, right? And the value chain, it should be formed on different pillars. Because you need to have at least 3 pillars that you can stand or sit firm. So we basically decided that the whole Tide the main mission need to actually be considered of these 3 pillars, such as social impact, like the people we have mentioned earlier, that we create impact for people and communities. The second is the environmental impact, because maybe when you were in school, you learned that the Amazonas is the lungs of the earth. But don't forget that all the oceans, they absorb 50 times more carbon dioxide than anything in the world. So it's important to protect the oceans. Without the oceans, there's no life. Plus, the ocean is very important to feed people, like with all the fish. It's a fundamental part of our ecosystem and how humanity can survive. And the third pillar is marketing, because you can only sell a product and communicate the product when you have a fully true and transparent story. And this story need to be told. This story need to be communicated. And especially by creating that social environmental impact, you have higher production costs. And on the other hand, in the industry, you always have price pressure. We had to find a way how we can kind of transfer those additional costs into the market. And by creating a strong, you can call it a fair trade label for plastic. And with full traceability and trackable solution, basically the marketing value of that whole story is finally more valuable than the effective additional cost price we have.
This episode was co-produced with Ceph Growth, a program which helps startups and SMEs overcome growth challenges. Since 2012, Ceph Growth has supported more than 135 startups, enabling them to secure more than 200 million Swiss francs in growth capital. Meet Tide Ocean, one of the companies that have received the CEF Growth High Potential label, and apply for the program yourself by visiting cef-growth.ch. That's SEF-growth.ch.
And when you look at the mission of cleaning the ocean from plastic, provocative question, but isn't then your ultimate goal to be obsolete with Tide Ocean?
This was one of the first questions when we started with the business model. We said, okay, when our business depends on the damage, it's not sustainable. So then we quickly learned that we need to act on basically two main fronts. One is fix the damage by cleaning the ocean, rivers, uncontrolled landfills, coastlines, etc. But on the other hand, we also need to prevent the damage. And luckily in Switzerland, what I've learned since I was a child is, you recycle.
Yep.
Or at least the household is separating glass to glass, aluminium to aluminium, food to food, etc. And plastic to plastic.
The infrastructure is there for it.
Exactly. And in developing countries, that infrastructure doesn't exist. So we said we need to kind of duplicate the Swiss recycling model into the developing countries. And then it gives a bridge to the social impact. How can you motivate people to get you the plastic or bring you the plastic? And one of the most impressive experience was with my son. He's now 10 years old. But when there's some plastic trash on the street, I ask him, can you please take the trash? And Jonah says, no, it's not my trash. I didn't put it there. That's not mine.
Yeah.
But when I tell him, look, I give you $1, it takes 2 seconds. The trash is in the bin.
Yeah.
And why this happens? Because Jonah sees a value in it. It's not anymore trash. It's cash. It's money. So this is actually our business concept, that we motivate people and tell them, look, when you bring the plastic to us, so first collect the plastic at home, and then bring the plastic to our eco hubs, and we pay you per kilogram.
Okay.
And then immediately a problem turned into a solution, in a monetary solution. And especially when you're in a developing country and you need to make a living to feed family, friends, community, every $1 is welcome. Or even fishermen, when they're out fishing, in the past they complained about the plastic. Today it's an additional income stream.
Okay. And then they bring it also to the eco hubs in these countries.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happens in these hubs? What do you create out of it, basically?
And then it's the second step of our social impact program, where we employ people to basically sort the plastic. Because to be able to recycle a product, the sorting is the most important step. To separate different plastic types, paper, even wood or any other raw materials, you need to separate, you need to sort by color, by type, etc. So we collaborate with social enterprises in our eco hubs. For example, in Ranong in Thailand, we collaborate with Jan and Oscar, which is a Geneva foundation active in Thailand. So we basically employ people on site to sort the plastic for us. So from the collection part to the sorting part, we cover the social impact. And then once it's pre-sorted, it goes into the industrial flow, where then the plastic will be shredded, washed, and repelletized into almost virgin quality new plastic. And that's also the good thing about plastic. Plastic is chemistry. Chemistry are molecules. So basically you can recycle plastic always.
Yeah.
You lose a bit of quality, but we're ending up on like 97% virgin quality. So I would say you as a consumer, you don't feel the difference.
You wouldn't notice.
Yes. It's more like the high technical plastic industry. They question the 3%.
Yeah.
But considering what you're going to produce, you don't need virgin quality.
Okay. And then you have, from what I understood, you have 3 different types of material. At the end, you have the pellets, polyester, and the plastic filament.
Yeah, so the core business we have is pellets.
Okay.
It's actually the resin. the plastic pellets. And out of the plastic pellets, you can produce, depending on the industry, I mean, we don't need to go too technical, but you can inject the plastic into a hard plastic product. You can blow plastic into a bottle, or you can make plastic films. And as we recycle on a very high quality level, we can extrude it into yarn, which then will be used for apparel, for carpets, for insulation, and so on. And for 3D filaments, this is a smaller business part, but it's quite interesting for prototyping.
Yeah.
For example, during the Olympic Games in Paris, we had a huge Eiffel Tower built, 17 meters high, out of 3D printed dyed material.
Cool.
And it was presented in one of the Olympic villages.
Yeah.
Just to show also to community, look, this used to be trash. Now it's like an Eiffel Tower in your village. So
That's so cool.
yeah, but the main business is pellets.
Yeah.
And out of the pellets, I would say the biggest products we're currently doing is in the household industry, like bottles for dishwashing soap, or textiles, a lot in carpets, but also apparel, shoes.
Can you give us an understanding of the environmental impact it has? So, I don't know, for example, the CO2.
Yes, actually quite impressive. The recycling itself is the same production concept as doing virgin plastic.
Yeah.
I mean, pelletizing. There you don't really save a lot. But the biggest impact, and this why we have 80% CO2 saving compared to virgin plastic, is because we don't need oil.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of the only plastic which doesn't need oil. We use what already exists, means we don't need oil. And the highest CO2 responsible part for plastics is always the oil. Then it depends from where the oil comes from, if it's like fracking oil out of Canada or very clean oil out of Arabia. We don't know, but at least in our case, we don't need oil. And I think that's the biggest impact. Because there annually are produced roughly 400 million tons of plastic every year, and only 9% gets recycled.
That's crazy.
So we end up on 350 million tons. That's 350 billion kilogram every year.
Yeah.
And out of that, 14 million end up in the ocean every year.
That's mad.
And just to give you a picture of the potential, 14 million tons, if we only recycle 1% of those 14 million tons end up in the ocean, we would run on a turnover of $300 million. So it's a huge industry, huge business potential, while you can create social impact, environmental impact, and marketing impact for the brands.
Yeah.
So it's basically a win-win-win.
Yeah. Talking about the brands, because you partner up also with a lot of different organizations, what kind of demand do you see there from lifestyle brands, I don't know, all kinds of industry brands?
It depends a bit on the C level of those brands. That's quite impressive. You have like two generations. You still have the generation of my dad, for example, like between 60 and 75. They usually don't care too much.
Yeah.
It's all about price. So they're not that sensible like the new generation is. But when you look at the new C-level generation, let's say starting from age 30, 35, they want to use recycled products.
Yeah.
So an example is Tom Ford. Tom Ford launched with us a watch collection, and Tom Ford is like super into protecting the ocean. He's like, if I can buy a recycled product which serves the same quality level as I have a virgin, there is no excuse why not to use the recycled one.
Yeah.
And similar, maybe more Swiss focused, is with Migros. We did the handy bottle out of our material. And this was also quite impressive. 600,000 bottles have been sold out within just a few weeks.
Wow.
And all the shelves were empty. So this means also the consumer is ready to buy it.
Yeah.
It's not just that they want to support, but they say, okay, it's just a dishwashing soap. I mean, this is where we can start. It's just a part.
Yeah. I would like to see your sales funnel would be really interesting.
Yeah, it's very diverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I bet that, that is great. It also shows that it's like industry agnostic. It's really interesting for everyone, really.
Yeah, and this actually, it's, as an entrepreneur or just as a company, selling in is easy. Manufacturing is easy, selling in is easy. But to sell through, that's actually the key. And to be able to sell through something, you need communication.
Yeah.
That's why that third pillar I have mentioned earlier is so important, that you communicate transparently, and especially the new generation, they're looking very much into the products. I often use the example of the fair trade labels in fruits. When you're in front of the shelf, you have a basic income.
Yeah.
You stand in front of the shelf and you can select 3 types of bananas: the Max Havelaar, the normal banana, and the Ambuche banana, or the pre-guarantee banana. So which one do you select? Depends. Maybe the normal one. But what happens with you when you select the fair trade one? What happens in your brain? For you, it's like a confirmation. It's a feel-good banana,
you feel
right?
Good, exactly. You've done well.
Exactly.
You've done good.
So I paid a bit more, but I know the farmer has been paid well. And this is what we want to achieve with plastic, is that people, you're okay to buy plastic. And I'm also often criticized because I say you can take a plastic bag in the store. That's not bad. Unless you ensure that you bring the plastic bag back into recycling, or you reuse it.
Yep.
Because plastic is such a great product. You can form it. It's light. It's cheap. It's colorful. It's great. So the aspect of banning plastic is wrong. It's just we need to make sure that it turns circular.
Do you have numbers in comparison to, for example, glass recycling or paper recycling? Just out of curiosity.
In Switzerland, yes. It's quite impressive. In Switzerland, more than 99% of the glass comes back.
Yeah.
In aluminium, it's similar. It's more than 90%. Paper, I don't know. So it depends a bit on, like in Germany, you have a depot.
Yeah.
You have to pay a deposit on a glass bottle. Then it's social impact, right? It's like monetary motivation to bring it back. So it works. You have homeless people. Just on a side note, Manhattan had a huge problem in the 80s with beer cans, aluminium cans. Everywhere aluminium cans. Until the mayor decided, now I put 20 cents deposit on every can. So what happened? No more cans in the street. The homeless people had a job because they collected cans and returned the cans and got cash for it. So it was like a business model which worked already in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit wondered why we didn't do that in plastic. Maybe because it doesn't have enough value, I don't know. But
that's an interesting
definitely
thought.
For developing countries, it has a lot of value. And in Europe and the US, very more saturated, I think, that it has maybe a bit less value. But we have a higher educational level, so we should know that we need to bring it back.
Yeah, and I think it's also a question of being used to it. If you're surrounded by it and you know that is how it's done, and it's not something that is newly incorporated, you know about it, and it's like second nature to you to do it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a question of cultural.
I think the fair trade approach is quite the best one that how you can motivate people in developed countries to return their trash. Because you create trash, and I mean, there's no better packaging for a steak than packet it in a plastic foil, right? When you want to keep it for a few days in the fridge, when you buy it fresh from the butcher, I mean, you need to do it the same day, latest the next day.
Yeah.
But if you want to preserve it a bit, or if you want to freeze it, plastic is great. But you need to learn it goes back into the plastic collection.
Yeah.
So, but also other points which plastic can be avoided. I mean, why you need to pack an apple, a cucumber into plastic foil?
Totally.
But that's consumer behavior, because you don't buy the apple with a brown point on it. So it's then the business speaking, said, okay, we need to protect that people buy.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of human behavior which may also need to change a bit.
That's a good point. And also talking about behavior, I was just thinking about, because we're talking about paper recycling, then I was thinking of paper coffee cups. And I know that you also produce your own mugs, right? The ocean mug.
Yeah.
It's also something. So you produce also your own products. Are these just like novelty merchandise, or is it a beginning of something bigger?
No, actually, it's a merchandising program, because we learned that a lot of clients and partners want to feel tight. And to be honest, there's nothing more boring than plastic. I mean, plastic pellet, it's nothing, it doesn't have too much sex appeal, I would say. So we said, okay, we need to explain people, they need to be able to touch a product, that we're able to sell it. They need to see how valuable trash is, how nice it feels, how warm it feels. So out of that, we made a merchandising collection. And yeah, say never, never. But I think for us, more interesting would be brand collaborations.
Yeah.
I often use also the example of Gore-Tex. You can buy a ski jacket in Sportix in Migros.
Yeah.
And when you see the Gore-Tex label on it, you feel it's a good jacket, right? Even if it's a no-name jacket.
Yeah.
But when you have the Gore-Tex, it's a good jacket or a good pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And this is what we want to achieve, is that we collaborate with the brands. That they say, okay, this is Patagonia jacket. It uses plastic, yes, but it uses plastic from Tide. And Tide creates impact like this, and this. And then I think we have a very nice communication message, or coming maybe to a Swiss brand, like with On Shoes, or, there's so much potential to communicate that together.
Yeah.
But this we need to grow in, and we also hope that brands will understand our message and we can grow with them together.
Yeah. So everybody listening to this podcast, if you want to collaborate,
Yes.
reach out to Thomas.
Please.
You just said also that it's with these brands can also show the impact that you create. And I want to move back to something that you said before about the social impact, because I think that's also really interesting, especially in developing countries, when we talk about average wage. And you said also the pickers and fishermen who collect plastic. Can you give us an understanding of an average wage, for example, what it would be versus what you pay them, and what the difference it makes for them as well?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. It's a bit different from country to country. But in any case, it's always the minimum wage we respect. That for sure. So we're not paying them less than what actually is requested from governments.
Yep.
So we also strictly follow the laws. And then it depends on how much plastic they deliver. Most of them, they're paid by kilogram. Means the more they bring, the more they can earn.
Yeah.
So for the people with more effort to bring plastic, they earn more. So it's a bit variable. But besides that, on the ones in our eco hubs, the people which have a fixed monthly salary, we also kind of incentivize them with health insurance, for example, which they didn't have before. We support them with language. We support them with IDs. I mean, for you, it's normal to have an ID. You just go to office to get an ID.
Yeah.
But when you're on a remote island, I mean, to get an ID, you need to go to the main city. That's like a travel. This costs and so on. And education for kids. This is not free. I don't say we pay all the education, but we support together also with WWF in Thailand, that we enable people to get education, to get access to governmental offices. Yeah, we kind of integrate them in the normal process, which for us is just normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In how many countries are you active at the moment?
with our own operation, we're active in Thailand and in Mexico. In Mexico, we're in the Yucatan Peninsula, maybe Cancun, you have heard. It's like 3 hours south of Cancun, close to Belize.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a nice side story about, if we have time.
Yes, always.
In Mahahual in Mexico, we protect a beach of 7 kilometers. It's a turtle beach. You have 2 species of turtles. And the problem of plastic waste is that when new waste is arriving at the beach every morning, the sand, due to the mirror effect of sun, plastic sand, the sand gets 1 degree warmer.
Yeah.
When the sand is 1 degree warmer, only male eggs hatch.
No.
Yeah. That was very impressive. I've just been there with my family last summer. And the problem, and you know what happens when you only have males, right? So besides just having males,
Yep.
yeah, the species
And
will
reproduce.
disappear.
Yep.
And just by cleaning the beach, we control the temperature of the sand
Yeah.
and allow females to hatch. A little side effect of plastic pollution, which nobody is aware of.
All the different areas it also affects.
Coming back to the locations, it's Thailand in Ranong and Mahahual in Mexico. But we also partner with partner organizations in the Philippines, in Indonesia, since last year as well, in Malaysia and in Ghana.
Okay.
Yeah, Ghana is in Africa.
Do you go to all the sites yourself?
Yes, we have visited all the sites on our own. Then it depends on which team member. We have Matthias, which is our head of impact. He's just in charge of creating impact. So he's actually visiting more in-depth islands, while me and Mark, we're building the relationship and, of course, maintain the business because we support them weekly with also payments because this all need to be financed.
Yep. How many people are you now?
In Switzerland, we are 10. We always call it the cockpit because our operations there in Far East. And then I would say all in all, it's about 25 fixed employees globally. And then about 240, 250 indirect employees, which are paid by kilogram.
Yeah.
But interesting, with those people, we indirectly affect 180,000 people.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You know, families, friends, communities, etc.
Yeah.
Like fishing boats, we bought fishing boats in Thailand that people can transit from island to island. Our intention was to transport the plastic, of course, but we don't transport 24/7 plastic.
Yeah.
So those boats are also used for fishing. They're used for transportation. So we built warehouses on a few remote islands in Thailand that they're able to store the plastic instead of just putting it on a land or dump it on a landfill. Yeah, they're like small micro actions everywhere.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Which makes
really
it
cool.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah. How did you build up this team? Also in terms, because I can imagine when you have, especially abroad, also different offices, how do you start the hiring process? How do you prioritize what comes first, who comes first, etc.?
Yeah, we were very lucky. We found the right partners. And also thanks to ZDF, a German news channel, I think in 2019 or 2020, they made a report about us. And this created quite a lot of waves. So we got contacted by a lot of people about our business model and they wanted to support. So we learned about a lot of people out of that report.
Yeah.
And then it's all about treating people. I mean, how you treat people, they're going to treat you.
Yeah.
No, we're very lucky so far. And for the hiring process, I mean, we have so many committed people. That's impressive, how they support our mission. And in every startup, you also have some corrections, right? The expectations are too high. Then maybe your hiring process was slightly too aggressive, I would say. So also we had to do some corrections, unfortunately. Just last year, we had to let 2 people go, good quality people.
Yeah.
But it's typical way of a startup. I mean, it's this balance. But the core people we have now, it's just fantastic how they're committed to everything.
On the sites in Mexico and in Thailand, do you also have full-time people there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because we need to be able to manage that.
Yeah.
And as we collaborate, as mentioned, with WWF or Lufthansa, the foundation of Lufthansa is called Help Alliance. They supported us to build up Mexico. You need to have someone on site. That's really important because we are in a developing country. You need to control the cash flow. Yeah. And you need to have the right people on the right chair. So,
talking about who supported you and the collaborations that you just mentioned, I want to talk also, of course, a bit about the whole financing part. So how did you build it up? Where did you get the funding from? And you already mentioned that the main investor is the previous company. But can you tell us more about the funding that you've raised? What kind of rounds did you go through? What kind of sources did you look out for?
Yeah, as you correctly say at the beginning, we financed everything out of our own pocket. And then as we had still have a very strong relationship with the Swiss University of Applied Science, we also got through that a lot of connections, especially the Technology Fund in Switzerland. That's an incredible fund which supports new Swiss startups with a technical focus. And then we were able to get a loan from the Technology Fund with state guarantee. So completely protected, secured. So this helped us, I would say, to go out of the seed round.
Yeah.
And then we were thinking, okay, should we start with the Series A? This was like 2 years ago. But then we timed it perfectly for COVID. So it was was not possibly the right decision to do it at that time. Yeah. But we already had a few really good clients which were interested to join us, like European largest carpet manufacturer. They joined us with a substantial amount of money. Okay. And that time we had a valuation of around 10 million Swiss. And that valuation was paid. But now we know that plastic is a commodity. It's all about volume. So we need to grow. We need to expand. So we're now in the planning of a Series A. A Series A with two options, either a 3 million Series A or a 10 million Series A. It depends a bit on the investment hunger. We have a business model for both.
Okay.
How we could actually grow and expand the business. So more is like the more organical one. And the other one, we always say, is the one on steroids, where we can really push and, be present at every exhibition, marketing show, B2B advertising, and so on.
Hey, Swisspreneur listeners, did you know we have a monthly newsletter? That's right. On the first Friday of every month, we send out a digest with all the news developments of the Swiss startup scene. From upcoming events to growth hacks and free resources to community stories and recent funding rounds. Click the link in the show notes to subscribe. You won't regret it.
And talking also about marketing, being present as well. You've also won plenty of awards, right? As a startup, not only in Switzerland, but also abroad in Germany and China. Do you find that they've been useful? I presume also in terms of press, but also sometimes I think it's interesting when you enter a competition and afterwards you're like, actually I was in the right target group or not the right market. But can you tell us how you find the awards, the programs, if you apply for it? How do you know? How is it worth it?
Usually they contacted us.
Oh, well, that's a lucky situation.
Yeah, they nominated us, some really out of the blue. Yeah. They said, why don't you apply?
Okay, yeah.
And some we found that could be interesting for us because like an award is like free marketing.
Yeah.
It has a lot of marketing value and press value, as you correctly mentioned. But on the other hand, we also didn't apply for any potential award. I mean, it need to be linked to the business.
Yeah.
I think an award need to be either from an association connected to your business. It could be an industrial award, like the Swiss Plastics Award we got. Because this was quite nice. We got it twice, 2022 and 2023. And this was kind of impressive because the plastic industry was kind of smiling at us. And they said, one more recycler, one more turtle saver, like
Yeah.
you don't get really accepted as you wish. And then when you win such an award, really in the holy halls of the plastic, this was a confirmation also for the plastic industry that we're doing it right.
Yeah.
And then other awards which were really interesting, like the Swiss Ethics Award. This is for me the most valuable one, because by the Swiss Excellence Forum, they want to make sure that companies work on a high ethical level, and we got awarded with that one back in 2022.
Yeah.
This was actually a proof that our ethical business model is right. Yeah, and the big one we got last year, that was the CEF Growth High Potential reward. This is kind of I think one of the most important awards you could get in Switzerland. That a committee of entrepreneurs made a detailed due diligence and said, okay, that company, that brand has a high potential.
Yeah.
So this was...
So did you apply for that one, or were you also approached? with
No,
this one?
this came through the technology fund.
Okay.
Once you're in that kind of scene, you
Once
know
you're
one
in.
guy who knows the other guy. But this one, I think we proactively applied, if I'm not mistaken.
What motivated you to do so?
When you're fresh in a market, you need to sell your products. You need to get connections. And the Swiss Economic Forum is quite nice because it connects a lot of entrepreneurs in Switzerland, from like old-fashioned companies to like fresh, young, dynamic ones. And most of them, they use plastic. So we thought, okay, we need to get into the typical KMU, small SME part of Switzerland, and Swiss Economic Forum is an excellent platform.
Yeah.
So we have been invited already last year to join the forum in Interlaken. And then we said, okay, let's apply. And then we had a great interview, due diligence, and it was really fun to work with them.
Yeah. And I think also part of the program is that you also get coaching and like tailored coaching and insights from experts.
Yes, you can request that. You can request that. But I think that's more for like really fresh startups, because thanks to Braloba, we have like already a certain business structure. I mean, we know how to do business plans. We know how to read a balance sheet. We know, some basic business functions. We know how to do that.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to start from zero, like an ETH spin-off who starts to build a brand from scratch. So I think we were a bit on a fast track on that one.
And of course, I mean, with an award like this or being part of a program like that, you get access and presence to certain industries, investors, like you said, customers, partners.
Yeah, and actually, once you're really in that pot, it continues. I mean, you have so many opportunities. I just got invited by UBS to join the Global Visionary Program. There are a lot of opportunities, but it's important that you clearly select what can help you and what cannot help you, because this takes time. You need to, when you want to do it right. Don't forget about your business. So there's also a risk when you're like dancing on every party that you forget your core business. And that's actually key, that you need to concentrate on your business to grow.
Talking about concentrating on the business to grow, what is next in store for Tide Ocean?
Yeah, expansion. I mean, we need to get into the volumes.
Yeah.
That's a fact. But the good thing is, the more we get into volumes, the more impact we can create. We are now in a very detailed development with the automotive industry. So we can show some nice examples starting from next year on. Nice communication message that we're launching with 2 very impressive brands. Then we're also in the apparel industry. We're growing. So I think a lot of brand collaborations are coming up.
Yeah. What a teaser. We will be looking out for this.
Yeah, it takes, especially in automotive, it takes time. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's not the lowest hanging fruit we selected there. I think you will be very soon sitting comfortably in a nice car seat.
I see. And what's next for you personally, Thomas?
money is nice, right? Like everyone likes money, but it should never be the driving factor. So that's why we look at it. Even we have financial pressure from investors and daily business. We really want to expand that impact because we know it works. And it's great to see what we can create. So that's like the personal mission, to create as much impact as possible. Also motivate potentially that we receive more competitors.
Yeah.
Because that market is so big. And the more people who understand how this works and do the same creates more impact.
Yeah.
So I think it's on a personal level, it's like this target. We're also never talking about an exit, for example, at the moment. We say now we build. We don't exclude it. Important is that we run on our mission.
Yeah.
And me and Mark, we're still full of energy and full of motivation.
That's great.
And also traveling, I mean, having a healthy family, happy wife, happy kids, see the kids growing.
Yeah.
It's also, of course, a personal target, which is very important. Family. Be home latest at 6.
I think that's
because
a very good.
The kids go to bed at 8. Don't miss those 2 hours between 6 and 8. You can go to the office at 5 a.m. if needed. Don't forget about family. That's your driving factor, especially when you're under pressure.
Yeah.
To come home to a warm home is, I think, very important.
Yeah.
And this is what I see also. A lot of entrepreneurs are a bit missing. It's all about work, but life is not just work. So when you work right, work hard. But as soon as you arrive home, turn off or make the switch, because this gives you a lot of energy for the next day.
And also, like a reason to come home to something.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what a poetic way that we finish. Before we do that, I would actually like to ask you if you have any resources or tools or gadgets that you use personally that you can recommend to our listeners.
I'm not the biggest reader, to be honest. I always have the problem when I read books. I think about the business, and then I was reading like 30 pages and I have no clue what I've read. But what I like, actually, I like biographies. Throughout the whole, not just entrepreneurs, also politicians. Not everything is right, what they say, or matches to your demand, but you can learn a lot out of biographies, what they made wrong, and which you potentially can avoid to make the same mistake.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important source to know what other people are doing. And also don't listen to too many people. I mean, when you feel it's right, when you have the stomach feeling it's right, just do it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are hesitating to do something, or they worry it could go wrong.
Yeah.
But maybe try, because when you try 10 times, you can succeed 5 times. But when you only try 3 times, you never get the 5. So this is maybe something we can also learn in Europe, like failure.
Yeah.
To fail is okay.
Yeah.
It's not wrong. You can fail.
Opposites.
Just correct it.
Yeah.
I mean, take responsibility of your decision. Take the consequences. And when you're not risking anything, you get overtaken by other people very quick.
Yeah. Or you miss out on maybe beautiful things that could have happened.
I'm not saying you have to be blue-eyed, right? Just run.
Go for it. Just do it.
Don't put your business based on luck, but you can kind of lead it a bit.
Yeah.
You're responsible for your own luck.
Yeah. Very wise words for the end. Before I bid you farewell, I do the rapid fire questions. So I will ask you 4 questions. You have not heard them before. And just answer, talk about gut feeling, what your gut says. So first one, if you had to choose, would you choose the ocean mug or the ocean domino?
The ocean mug, because I'm like a crazy coffee drinker. My wife always tells me, don't drink so much coffee. And the domino, I haven't figured out how it works. To be honest, we have a domino in our merchandising program, and I need to read the user manual, how exactly it works. I tried with the kids, but I had to pretend I know it. But to be honest, I forgot the rules, so I need to reread it. So the coffee mug.
Fair enough. What's the biggest source of waste in your life that you wish you could correct?
Time.
Very philosophical answer.
Yeah, I lost so much time in believing something. I always thought it's coming. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I should have said, okay, no, it's coming not. Forget about it.
Yeah.
So I lost a lot of time in my career hoping for something, which looking back, the chance was really low that it would really arrive. Maybe sometimes pull the trigger, stop, start something new.
Move on. Yeah.
Don't be too patient.
Good answer. Next one. If you hadn't started Tide Ocean, would you still be working at Braloba?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, it doesn't really matter what you produce or what you make. I think it's about passion. And especially with Braloba, working in developing countries, creating impact and employing people, I think that's a big asset.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have Braloba, I think I would work somewhere in graphics, or I like creative things. I'm a creative mind. I wouldn't be an artist, no, but I would work like in advertising agency, or I think that would be or I would have my own agency. I don't know.
See, there's the entrepreneurial spirit again. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. That ends our interview. Thank you for your time. Well. It was very, very interesting to talk to you, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you as well.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.